turn it over to Vanessa.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Jeff and Marcio and Boca Tech for having me again here. And it's great to see some familiar names and faces that I've seen in the previous courses. So thanks, everybody, for the support, not only to our classes, but also to our friends at Boca, at BTA. Thank you, because I'm a big passionate about education and continuing education. Just because we cannot just get stuck at one specific topic in life, right? And even if we are, we still have to keep on moving, especially with everything that has happened in the past 2 years. I think that's the one lesson that we got, that we cannot be stagnant, that we have to keep on moving and to be resilient and to just be able to be resourceful as well. So thank you, because I know this is an hour of your personal time that you're committing. I know that you're looking forward towards those CEU credits, but I also know that most of you do it just to learn something new and more relevant to both of our industries. Like Jeff said, my name is Vanessa, for those that don't know me, and I work for LK and Associates, and we are a manufacturer sales representative and we represent at this time over 21 different manufacturers on the consumer electronics industry on the CEDIA channel. And today I'm going to be talking about the science of light in optimizing design, functionality, and wellness. And I know we've touched base on this different points before in other classes, in other CEDIA classes, but this specific class here has been created by the lighting experts and designers at Sierra. And Sierra is a designer technology company based out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. And they create different solutions inspired by their art meets technology philosophy. They manufacture TVs that go where regular TVs cannot go, like TV mirrors and outdoor TVs. And most importantly, they also make beautiful, elegant lighted mirrors with technology upgrades, including clocks, defoggers, voice control, and everything. Again, it's manufactured in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Well, most of the content we're going to be talking today in this course applies to any light situation, any lighting situation. A lot of the examples and references provided throughout the presentation are mostly applicable to bathroom, where lighted mirrors can be decorative and functional in every single asset. So what are we going to be learning today? So today's objectives, number one, we want to teach you the interior lighting effects on consumers' health and well-being. Number two, we want to make sure that we become knowledgeable, and I want to make sure that we explain the technical lighting features that will help you choose the right light source to optimize health, functionality of the light, and the design of the space, of course. Number three, we want to solve common lighting problems. We want to learn ways that we can improve the user enjoyment of the space and health. And number four, we want to make sure that we optimize, that we know how to optimize lighting to enhance design, function, and user well-being. We want to show you, and provide you with all the details on the benefits to our users. So by the end of the presentation, you should have the knowledge you need to add the proper functional lighting to a room while enhancing the room's decoration. So we know that interior lighting affects health and well-being. This is something that it's been going on for a while now. Most of the lighting classes, I think we touch base on how important and the different developments and studies that have come in how the lighting affects the well-being in general. And we know that, light is part of our everyday life, and how important it is throughout our day. We know how many times a day we need light in order to perform a task. We think the first thing that we do when the power goes out at night is like the first thing we do is to reach out for a phone to probably get that light, or maybe get a flashlight or a candle so we can see again. So light is definitely, even at nighttime, more than any time, is important. And it's part of our daily lives. And without it, we're limited as to what we can do. And it plays a central role in the design of the space. And the design needs to incorporate light so people and objects can be visible. Light also influences aesthetics and the mood in a room, and it affects the well-being. the quality and intensity of the light can also affect our biological clocks, which can definitely affect our health. And when we have artificial light on or before the sun rises and after the sun, it can affect our sleeping habits. So we see here, and again, like I mentioned before, it's not the first time we talked about this, but we know all the different effects that it can have on us. So we spend average, right? And this is kind of sad, that we spend 80 to 90% of our time indoors. Back in the days when they used to say we used to spend a lot more time outdoors, and of course, the benefits, we hear our predecessors saying, like, back in my days, we didn't have as many mental issues, or like health issues and overall issues. But, I think a lot of it, and studies show that the fact that we spend so much time indoors affects us. And thanks to that, we have had new studies that has helped us understand how lighting affects that. So back to that, 80 to 90% of our time, we spend it indoors. And that's why, we are exposed to the very low dosages of that sunlight. The daily working life often consists of changing visual tasks with changing demands of the lighting provided. And unfortunately, people are often exposed to inadequate lighting, right? Due to the poor brightness, contrast, luminance, different lights flickering, and so on in different schools and office environments. The low light levels and inadequate lighting during the day are associated with diminished health and well-being. Using low light levels at night cues for us to go to sleep and to stay asleep, which incorporates poor health too. So those are, the different things that, again, just touching on the surface of it, that we know that how much it affects us. But, when we have numbers like this that shows us, like, the impressive of that percentage that we spend indoors and we don't realize it, I think it's kind of like eye-opening. Jeff, do you, when you talk to your clients, does a lot of people realize this at all? Like that, how we get affected by this at all?
Oh, totally. And it even, lends itself to, this whole outdoor living thing that has come up, starting before COVID, but certainly was amplified by COVID. And then landscape lighting and other mood lighting that we like to have outside because it's calmer and it's kind of dark and you got accent lights and the drama. That really feels nice when you go out into a well architected outdoor living space, and then kind of transition from the indoor to the outdoor. You don't want super bright light inside when you're coming from the outside, and that whole mood thing. And then as far as we've seen a lot of natural LED products hit the market, a lot of interest in that, and I think people are understanding the sort of the wellness for interior lighting a lot more. At least it's a topic, and almost every week here we've got someone coming in talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think everybody in general, and you see schools being more even aware of it nowadays, about the negative effects on the poor lighting. So yeah, here on this slide we see, we touched on how poor lighting can affect us. Depressed mood, lack of energy, and so on. So fortunately, there are many things that we can do to create a good visual environment, like what you were kind of mentioning before, Jeff. And we can reduce some of these negative health effects caused by light. And some of this includes maybe brightness and contrast to make it easier to see. You were mentioning that, the composition of light supporting central vision and peripheral vision, like the direct light on an object of the central vision. So when we're working in the office, we have those task lights that can help us focus better. And while, we can supplement it by diffuse lighting that can adequately light up the surrounding environment, so it can help our peripheral view as well. Another of the benefits, the light requirements by task, by supplementing like general lighting, like daylight and artificial lighting, with the task like I mentioned before. But people needs to be often, the needs need to be often met, and for the potential mental and physical irritation, so that we can avoid that, or overall. We can add color characteristics, which include color rendering index and color temperature, so we can optimize the space for the use of the light. The human eye adaptation to light levels, like going from brightness to complete darkness, which you mentioned as well. I think that we're more aware of how we can make that transition easier for our users, and to make it easier for our eyes to adjust. And then the light requirements by user, right? They need that. Different age groups have different requirements when it comes to light. Like elderly people often need more than twice the amount of light than younger people do need. So this is some of the interesting information and data that we have gotten in the past few years that sometimes we oversee. So what are some of the common lighting problems that we see? In this slide, we can see some of them, right? Like insufficient lighting. There's low, on this slide, you can see on this picture right here, that there's super low light throughout the space. And therefore, a lot of shadows are created on the work area. And by the work area, I mean, like, for this mirror right here, when we want to groom ourselves or clean ourselves. So that area is obviously not lighted properly. So therefore, we strain our eyes, and we end up coming up with really bad makeup for us women out there, right? So that's one of the problems that we face when we have insufficient lighting. Another one, for sure, that is common is glare. Light is reflected from polished or shiny or glossy surfaces. A lot of our marble vanity surfaces, glass on the shower doors, frame art, windows reflect light. And poorly positioned light fixtures can certainly cause the direct glare as well, like we see on this picture, like right here on this top area. Another one is improper contrast. If you see on this picture here, we see that the surrounding area is brighter than the work area where the mirror is. So, that makes it difficult to see, since objects are hard to distinguish from the background, right? So that's another popular mistake that we see. Another one is the poor distribution. In this example, a common occurrence in bathroom is the overhead lighting alone can create a lot of shadows, especially on our nose, on our chin, and it doesn't provide sufficient lighting for personal grooming. There's poor lighting distribution. The ceiling and the surrounding areas, as you can see, are super dark in this picture, making the lights uneven, and obviously a lot of differences in lights. The eyes tend to have a hard time readjusting to all the different contrasts in shadows in a room like that. So before we start addressing ways to design a space with proper lighting, and how to reduce this negative health effects and improve lighting functionality, I would like us to understand the different lighting features that we see. So the definition of brightness obviously is a perception. It's of the light source or the visual target in this case. It cannot be measured, it's only perceived. Lumens and foot candles are often used as a guide to determine perceived brightness. Many factors actually go into perceived brightness. It's not reliable. It's to just the lumens or the foot candles of the light source to determine brightness. So again, we're talking about perceived when we talk about brightness. And this slide here actually shows us the perfect example on how lumens is measured, right? And lumen is the measurement of the total amount of visible light emitted by a source. So basically the output of the light source. This is provided in lumens per bulb. Since LEDs are not bulbs, lumens are often provided in a measurement such as lumens per foot of LEDs. As you can see on this slide, I mean, you go from super low lumens all the way up to the brighter perceived light on lumens. Jeff, does a lot of our clients, do they understand how lumens work and how how it is perceived in general?
No, not at all. I think they're starting to get the idea of, what a cool light is in terms of Kelvin, 5,000, 3,000, and a warmer one. So I think color temperature is becoming part of the vernacular. But the whole concept of ANSI lumens is definitely not anything that people understand these days, for sure.
Right. It is confusing because we have so many terms when it comes to lighting, right? So I
Yeah.
bet when they read something like that, it definitely, makes it more confusing for sure.
I think they understand, we talk a lot about warm dimming because as you dim up from zero, if you will, you kind of want it to be a little warmer at the lower end, at the 10, 20, 30% of the dimming curve. And then as it goes brighter, you want it to be whiter light. So the idea of a multi-LED bulb that can do warm dimming and then have cool white towards the top, I think that that's come up a number of times. But overall brightness is very misunderstood. And we only really talk about it in terms of how bright a TV is or how bright a projector is. I don't really talk to people about lumens when they're buying a bulb, you know?
Right. Yeah, because they focus more on that other end result and how it affects the final result.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's foot candle, right? Foot candle is the measurement of the light on the square foot surface. So that actually is a little more relevant when it comes to lighting, I believe. And some of you might have heard lux, which is the same measurement, but lux applies more to meter, to 1 square meter surface instead of 1 square foot. In other words, I mean, foot candles and lux can be measured for the usable light from a specific point of space. But we're gonna just talk about foot candle because that gets more applied here in the US for us. As you can see here, the foot candles is the measurement, it's measuring the quantity of light on 1 square foot surface, which can be taken at any distance from the light source. Like you mentioned before, Jeff, we see this often with projection, right? Projectors and TVs, so foot candle, foot lamps, that's actually our measurement when it comes to that, but it somehow applies to lighting as well. And generally speaking, the further away from the light source, the lower the foot candle. So we obviously want to be the closer to the light source. On a lighted mirror, for example, the etching of the design and the size of the mirror, and depending on the diffusers are used, these are examples of things on how brightness and the foot candles can also be measured as well. And foot candles is a common measurement used to calculate adequate lighting levels of workspaces and task areas. So we're going to see this on a lot of commercial applications that a lot of these readings are often provided. As well as we see it often when we talk about bathroom mirrors, we see this measurement used as well. So how do we increase usable light, or what we call, the measurement of in foot candles? So one of them is to use light source with higher lumen output. As explained, the light sources have lumen ratings. So selecting a bulb or LED with higher lumen output would definitely increase the usable light. Number two, we have the increase of quantity of bulbs or LEDs. And for example, having 2 strips of LEDs is brighter than having one strip of the LEDs. Another way is positioning the light source in a way that allows more light to shine through. For example, avoid thick lampshades so they can reduce the amount of light shining through, or diffuse the light in different directions, such as upward or against the wall. And number 4, like on a similar note, directing the lights towards the subject that you want to be illuminated will definitely increase the foot candles in a specific location. And using indirect light or dispersing the light will create a broad light that has lower foot candles in a specific area. So definitely using a more focused and narrow light beam will increase the foot candles in that specific location. Number 5, move the light closer to the task. Placing the light source closer to that task area will create higher foot candles And the further away you are from the light, the less usable light will be. So those are some ways that we can increase the usable light. I
Well,
hope this.
another thing, Vanessa, what about like the color of the room? Like you have a bright color versus a dark color is going to absorb more light. Look, we do theaters, we tend to lean
Yep.
towards the dark colors for that exact reason. So I wonder how that interacts with it, you know?
Definitely. It definitely, and we're going to touch base in a little bit here on that and how the room and everything in a room can affect the light in what we see. And actually how we can use light to enhance different decorations. I mean, we don't touch much on that here, but we actually did a demo on how color temperature and and the different adjustments on lights, and we had two different pillows just to showcase and how the different light, how it can actually bring up the different colors that we wanted to showcase. When I used to work at Media Decor, we also had a demo on how light, it's extremely important to showcase paintings or art in general, right? We go to certain galleries and you see that they want to use different lights depending on what they're showcasing. So for instance, older paintings, we will want to have that yellowish warming candle-like lighting on them, because that's how it was intended. That's how it was painted original. Back in those days, they didn't have any fluorescent lighting. So everything was done under that candle. So that's the way the painter and the artist intended it. So there's a lot of elements that can certainly affect the way we perceive that lighting and how it affects the whole environment. So great point, Jeff. That's absolutely true.
So to that point, we have some art hanging on our wall here, and we have a natural LED light on it. And we brought the artist that painted on the canvas in and tuned the color to what she was seeing when she painted it for the exact comment that you just made. Because we have tunable light, and hey, what did you paint it under? If you're painting under candlelight, you were seeing yellow when you were painting it, right? If you're painting it outside, it's a whole different thing. So we know that when we change the light, the whole picture looks different. What did it look like when you were painting it was the question. It was very interesting what our results are. We have that as a demo in our showroom right now.
That's awesome. That's excellent. I mean, we saw that Monet is such a vibrant artist, but you have to have those paintings under the correct, tunable light. Otherwise, you're not gonna see the intention on his so
Yeah.
detailed, artistry. So for sure, it definitely changes, the way you perceive that art piece at that point. So very important. So in this on this slide, I mean, we're looking on how the brightness is increased by directing the light towards the object being, in this case, yourself, right? When you're grooming yourself. In these two examples, we see the task lighting, which are these two bars right here. And the closer they are to the object, it is obviously a lot brighter. And we can see how, like this is measured, and then you see how, the perceived brightness is. And it definitely affects, it has a big effect on yourself. So the direct light shining straight at the object for task lighting, and the use of indirect lighting with lamps pointed outwards away from the object for accent lighting. So which is what we're highlighting here. Both lighted mirrors, they use the same bulbs in this example right here, and the same number of lumens. But when taking the measurement of foot numbers from when the person's face will be looking into the mirror, in this case, in 18 inches from the center of the mirror, the foot candles is much higher with lighted mirror on the left, which we talked here, than what it is on the accent light here. So that's one thing to consider when we're doing these designs and when we're talking to the end user as to, okay, so what's the intention of this lighted mirrors? Are you going to use them for grooming in general? So let's think about not only having, I mean, the accent lights looks beautiful, but maybe what you need in your case is the task lighting and a little closer to where your object is going to be. So we know the different ways to manage light. The eye takes approximately, and one of them is dimming, the night light and diffuser. And this is actually supporting back to what Jeff was saying at the beginning. And again, this is some data that we got here for this specific class. And he says here that it takes approximately 20 to 30 minutes to fully adapt from bright sunlight to complete darkness. And obviously it becomes more sensitive than a full day light. However, it takes 5 minutes for the eye to adapt from darkness to bright sunlight. So dark adaptation for sure is faster. And it's different, right? And it's definitely faster for younger people than it is for elderly. So this is something to consider when we're making these designs. And the way to make this transitions more gradual without harsh interruption to the eyes, that's why we say we use dimmers and we use night lights. And diffusers, of course, is another option to prevent eyes from looking directly at the light source. So what are some of the benefits of dimming? You know, they're obviously different in several benefits. And the first one, for some users, they might prefer brighter light versus others, right? As we get older, we become more sensitive, like I mentioned before, to light, but we also need more light to enable us to see fine details. Users may also have different preferences for lighting brightness levels based on the time of day that they're using the room. And then the task that they're performing. So, for example, most people need and prefer lower lighting.
Grammarly, puedes escribir en inglés rápido y
Oh, Spanish.
Find your next customer with Facebook ads.
What?
People, but the right people most likely to engage with your business and become customers. Facebook.
Okay. We are the
Good.
product.
Yeah. So back to that, I mean, so definitely some people prefer, you know, brighter environments or brighter light. Others, you know, might prefer to set the mood and to be more, you know, like to keep it dim. But, you know, we have that flexibility to adapt to the different clients and what they want and what they need in reality. We also, you know, definitely reduce the replacement cost from extended lamp life because we're, you know, when it's dim, we're not using it at the maximum brightness. And the fourth, I would say, is the additional benefit of using fewer watts, which is less energy consumption. So which at the end, it's not only helping the environment, but it also lowers the electricity cost and save the end user the money. So here are some of the benefits, and I'm sure most of us know what they are, but it's always important to keep in mind and to bring that up to the client when we are doing this designs and when we talk to them about the different lighting options that we definitely, and they just might say, I just want a switch that turns it on or off. I think dimming is extremely important. And we see this also on vanity mirrors. I mean, how important they are, because they might not want to use all that, you know, all that light when they're doing their tasks, when they're grooming every day, but they might just want to use it, you know, on the dimming, one of the dimming presets at nighttime, and just leave it on that preset. So it's, you know, just one of the features that we sometimes tend to forget, or that end users don't want to spend the money on, but at the end, it brings them a better solution overall that can adjust to their lifestyle, and also like what we mentioned here on number 4, save energy and lower their, you know, electrical cost. Do you guys? I'm sure Jeff, you guys often talk about this, the dimming benefits.
Yeah, and the other comment I'd throw out maybe as a number 5 is layering light, and each layer having its own individual dimming level. Because like in your example there, you might want that mirror light to be bright, but the ambient lighting, like the overhead lighting, is causing glare, dim that down. But if they were all on the same dimming switch, then that doesn't work as well as if they're separated and you could adjust them separately. So I think the layering is really important.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. That's something that we often forget. Okay. Light controls, and this is where VTH shines. You know, we have so many options that we can accommodate based on the client needs. Technology is constantly advancing, as we know, and you know, there's such a things as, window shades, televisions, music in the room, and we want to make sure that they all integrate and that they all talk to each other and that we can just make it easier for the client to use, right? I've always used the example when, this is many years ago, my grandma, she lives with us, and we used to live in a 2-story home, and we first installed dimmers and different lighting throughout the house, and we failed to teach her how to use that and explain to her, like, okay, all you have to do is press the button, and this is the scene that is going to come up, and lights are going to come on. And she's like, no, but I don't want to turn the lights on and wake you guys up. And like, no, these are the different scenes. She couldn't understand it. And I always tell the story. She came up to me one day, she says, do you have a flashlight? And I'm like, what do you need a flashlight for? It's like at nighttime when I need to go downstairs to the kitchen and get some water, I really want to be able to see. And I'm like, grandma, here, just press this button and it'll show you how to, it'll turn the lights on dimmingly, and I mean in a dimming setting where not everything is gonna come on and wake us up, so you're good to go. But it took her a little time, but once she got it, she was right on it. But yeah, we have so many features, we have so many resources nowadays. Like I mentioned, the dimmer switchers, the interface, touch interfaces, voice. We have our phones that can control it now. So it's like the sky is the limit when it comes to that. And again, it's just a matter of communication and talking to our integrators and letting them know what's the easier. And they'll teach us. They are the experts when it comes to this, as to how we can accommodate that to our needs and to our everyday life.
So I would add proximity detector in this. We love putting them in garages, pantries, and closets. When you walk in, the light turns on. When you leave, after a period of inactivity, they turn off. And they can come on to a different level depending on the time of day.
That's great. Do you guys install often path lights too?
Yeah, the proximity detector would light up pathway light. I was thinking of your grandma. No sense pressing a button. When they detect motion, then light up the staircase and the pathways under counter lights and 10%, 5% brightness level, and then turn it off afterwards. No button needed. Keeps your walls clean too, by the way.
Nice. Yeah. It's becoming, and it's less clutter on your walls for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the story of my grandma. She's gotten better. So here's one of the terms that we probably are more familiar with versus brightness and foot candle, right? Color temperature. And obviously it's another aspect of lighting that is important to consider for anything, for any design in general. In this case, we're talking more about bathroom, but definitely for bathroom designs. But in general, it's that measurement that it makes the apparent color of a light source. So in how it is measured, and as we know, it's measured in Kelvin. And the lower color the temperature, the warmer it is, and the vice versa. So the American National Standards Institute set the manufacturing standard for color consistency. That color temperature must be within 10% of the stated color temperature. So a 3000 Kelvin light may actually measure anywhere from 2700 to 3300 Kelvin. So the color of light might affect how bright a light appears, even if the lumens are the same. Since most people are used to soft yellowish glow from incandescent light bulbs, Energy Star's certified bulbs that produce light closer to the color of daylight, which is a color temperature about 3000 Kelvin, might appear brighter because the color of the lights are less yellow. And then, sorry, change this. And the color temperature definitely is important to consider in order to set the mood in a room. It also provides adequate lighting based on the purpose of the space. And we have to, keep in mind that back when we talked about the importance of adequate lighting to optimize health and well-being, this is one of the things that Jeff mentioned, right? That color temperature brings that ability to create that mood, like we mentioned. Here's a quick chart showing us, like selecting the appropriate color temperature for the different environments that we are designing. So, you might wonder like, okay, so what color temperature should we use? Or your end user might just be confused as what they should use. And the actual answer depends on the purpose of the light. Like we mentioned before, typically a color temperature of 3000 Kelvin is preferred for task and general indoor lighting applications, even though 2700 and 3000 Kelvin are within the warm white color temperature rate. 3000 Kelvin is closer to what we call natural light. And because the natural variability in color temperature, the plus or minus 10% that we talked earlier, 3000 is typically chosen over 2700, which might appear too yellowish to some clients or to some people. And then, we know that we use the warm or the lower color temperature for living room spaces, so it can promote relaxation, like we see here, probably on the first one. And it's more flattering to the skin tones and clothing in general. And then, of course, we start moving more into the cool colors, temperatures for visual tasks such as bathrooms, offices, because it produces higher contrast and warm light. And then situations where you want to use higher color temperature of 4000 Kelvin or higher would definitely be like surgical, for surgical lights, for indoor photography, factories, art studios, keeping in mind what we talked before, depending on what the artist is trying, the intention is, and definitely offices. And like I would say 6000 Kelvin is only necessary for high light intensity applications, like maybe some museums, jewelry showcases, some art galleries, like I mentioned, especially a lot more modern art galleries will probably use that color temperature. Jeff, when you guys help our clients design, do a lot of our designers already have in mind what color temperature they want to use? Or is that something that you guys offer?
Well, they don't usually have like a spec that, and that's usually something gets discussed. But, the higher quality LEDs are now supporting more than one color temperature. I mentioned warm dimming is the most common example. So it would do like 3000 to something like 1750. So it would go very yellow at the low end and then brighter on the high end. So you can now pick a range. You're not just limited to one. And with the fancier lighting, it's full spectrum, and you can change it literally to any color temperature. So I think if you have places like that, like closets used to be fluorescent lights all the time, but we all know that you look at your clothing, it doesn't look right, and you take it out and go look at it in another light and it changes. So closets and bathrooms, and obviously places where there's artwork and so on, we have to really pay attention to that and make it look more like outside, I think. But anyway, having LED lights that can choose more than one color really just takes a lot of the grief out of it, because we've had to change lights before. Someone guessed wrong and then they didn't like them, and then you got to go change out the fixtures, which is not fun,
Absolutely. And then you have to have something that can control the different temperatures on that LED bulb as well. So
yeah, back to that dimmer kind of thing, or even a nap for that matter.
Absolutely. Interesting. All right, so CRI, the color rendering index, and when you use the CRI and when you see it listed on a lighting product, it's pretty much the metric on how closely the light produced by the fixture approximates to the sunlight, right? So the CRI measurement is on a degree to which the light source shows the true colors of the object, and it illuminates on a scale from 0 to 100. The higher the CRI, the truer colors actually look. And a perfect light is made up of all possible wavelengths and visible light combined, and it has a CRI of 100, which would be a perfect replica of the sunlight, like if you're standing outside on a full sunny day. And the most natural lighting for humans is sunlight, right? So earlier we talked about how much time humans spend indoors and how much we rely on artificial light throughout our lives and our daily lives. That's why it's so important for our health and well-being to have light that can resemble that as closely as possible to the natural sunlight. Additionally, CRI of indoor light also affects how people look under the light, since skin tones are specifically or especially sensitive to the quality of lighting. A higher CRI rating yields a better color rendering than to similar natural light, and is usually preferred by clients. Anything high above 85 CRI is definitely preferred in a home environment, on the resident environment. So in this case, you see here, the image shows on the left side the 70 CRI and 95 on the right. And you can see how the 70 on this woman's face here looks almost like unhealthy. Like she looks a little sick, I would say, where on the right, on the 95 CRI, the light illuminates her face in a way that is closer to the natural light. You can actually see the colors. You're able to see that red and that vibrant fuchsia colors here. So it definitely, it appears definitely healthier and more vibrant. The next one, and this is actually one of my favorite, and we talked about why R9 matters. And this is something that we use typically, or that I learned it on the projector live, on the home theater side of it. And red has been a crucial color for many applications, and to actually reflecting the flesh, the real human skin tones, right? And the CRI can be further broken down into this R values that we call. And so we have each R value represents the light source color rendering ability for particular colors and shades. And, like I mentioned, like red is such a crucial color, included in photography, textiles, and, reflecting just like I mentioned, the real skin tones. But, like a lot of lights, they lack the red. So that's one of the things that we gotta make sure that accuracy is there. And, and it's definitely useful to supplement, the light sources rendering ability. So it's one thing that, that we have to keep in mind. Just a side note, Sierra's brilliant LED technology, they're 95 plus CRI, and they have an R9 value of 92 of a scale of 100 always being the best, right? So you'll get with Sierra mirrors in their lighting, you'll get the full spectrum, including this important R9 rating as well. Does anybody have any questions so far, Marcio?
I don't see any questions here yet, but we are looking forward for your questions, people.
All right, awesome. So I'm just gonna go up again on this slide, and again we see again why that R9 and the color rendering index and all the different ranges, how important they are, and we see here how those colors look definitely more vibrant, and that's one of the reasons why. And this is what Jeff was mentioning earlier as well, like how the color of a room can affect the perceived brightness, the CRI, and definitely the color temperature, right? It's important to keep in mind that the walls affect the light as well. The brightness, the color temperature, and color accuracy might appear different in a room with dark walls compared to ones with bright white walls. For example, darker walls, we know this, they absorb more light, and they require, for sure, higher levels of illumination, where the same light might appear a lot brighter in a room that has light color walls. So the color of the wall may reflect also a different light hue, and as well as alter, the color temperature as well. So definitely something to keep in mind when we are designing the spaces. I mean, we see, the same light fixture, same color temperature on this picture right here, but we see that definitely the dark colors, they do affect that perceived brightness and color temperature overall. The lamp life is another feature to consider when selecting the type of lighting source we use. Some lamps last longer than others, which affects the frequency on how often lamps need to be replaced. And we don't want to deal with this nowadays because we live on this society that we want that instant gratification, and we don't want to be changing that routine often. So we can certainly reduce burnout by using long-lasting bulbs, right? In the light bulb industry, and this is just a nerdy, comment here, the average rated life, which is the ARL, is how long it takes for half of the light bulbs in a test batch to fail. So it's also being called a half-life rating, right? For example, if they have 100 bulbs and they're tested and they have an ARL of 15,000 hours, 50 of those bulbs had died when the test reached the 15,000 hours. So that's how that rating comes from. And some bulbs might have failed maybe within 1,000, or some 5,000, some 10,000, but half of them were dead at 15,000 hours. So that's how that rating comes in place. LEDs is very different, right? So they don't because they don't suddenly burn out. They start dimming out over time. And the ARL for LEDs is given for various percentages of the bulb brightness remaining. So it's common to see L70 or L50, meaning that 70% or 50% of the bulb brightness remains after whatever hours that they mentioned. So definitely different ratings, but important to keep in mind, again, when we design different environments. So the typical average life for various type of bulbs are shown on this table right here. We see like incandescent, halogen, fluorescent, and LED as well. So, we have electrical surges. There's so many factors that can actually affect the lamp life. That we have to keep in mind that a lot of these hours, a lot of these ratings were created on a perfect environment, right? They didn't have any surges, they were not used on and off constantly, and they were done on extreme cold or heat vibration per se. So, the ARL rating is under ideal conditions with longer lamp cycles, such as being left for 3 hours at a time, and so on. If LEDs aren't at their full brightness, or the bulbs burn out, aren't replaced, the space isn't at the optimal brightness needed for people to perform tasks or to have the adequate lighting that we need, right? So definitely, that's why this is important to keep in mind, and how often the bulbs will need to be replaced. So we're providing, the optimal lighting solution for our clients. So again, just keep in mind, and when we talk to them, okay, so we're going to be doing it, we're going to design the space with LEDs. Let's just keep in mind that after this amount of time, we're going to have to replace them so they can give you the maximum living output that you need. Lighting energy. So we've heard about watt. It's a very misunderstood term. And what is the rate at which energy is generated, right? And people typically confuse watts with brightness, but watt is actually the unit of power, which is the rate in which the energy is generated, like we mentioned here. In general speaking, lower watts means that the light requires less power and it consumes less energy when it's on. So the lower the watts, it saves more energy and it's better for the environment, and it results in a lower electrical bill. Lumens and foot candles measure light output and give insight to perceived brightness. Remember, we talked earlier about perceived. So that's what lumens and foot candles are. So as a general guideline to save energy, find bulbs with the lumens you need, and then choose the one with the lowest wattage, so we can have a better, so we can use less energy and save money on that. So, like we mentioned before, watts are not, they do not measure brightness. A lot of people used to compare in the past incandescent bulbs. If one had higher lumen output than the other, it typically would require more watts to stay on, which is why many people decided to associate higher watts with brighter light. But, obviously technology has improved and more efficient light sources have been developed first with fluorescent bulbs, then recently with LED technology. So you can see in this comparison chart right here that all three light sources have the same lumen output, right? We have 850 lumens, but then they all use different wattage. So then you can see here which one is more efficient, energy efficient, and they're still producing the same higher lumen output. Well, we talked about this, I mean, how to reduce energy with the lower wattage, and then this is, you know, like one of the many benefits of LED technology for sure. And of course, you know, we always think about the environment, so we gotta be aware that, you know, saving energy and helping the environment is one of the biggest impacts for sure. The lamp type for sure affects the design and flexibility. We have, this is a neat slide actually, because this is when we talked about CEDIA to our clients, and you know, we tell them about the technology that we use. It's, you know, especially depending on what they want to use, how they want to design their mirrors. But this is a very nice slide. But you know, one of the features to consider, what I wanted to go is like the selection of the shape, size, and flexibility of the lamp. Like, as we know, lamps come in different shapes and sizes, but the most flexible, again, is LED, because they come on strips that can be trimmed to accommodate nearly any length, unlikely like the fluorescent bulbs, right? That can only come on standard sizes and might not always fit the corners in a light fixture, leaving unattractive dark spots. And, you know, also LEDs are bendable, so they can actually wrap around a unique shape, and it provides definitely more freedom on the mirror design. On these images, as you can see, we can see an example of the lighted mirrors with the circle on each pattern where the light shines through. You can see the fluorescent bulbs don't wrap around the mirror on each pattern, and it leaves a lot of dark spots on those circles that you see there. So this is a same situation, of course, also with LED tubes, in which these tubes can come in limited sizes, just like fluorescent bulbs, and might not fit that corner on the mirror. So definitely would not, you know, you'll see those dead spots or unwanted voids in lighting, and definitely not something we want to see. So it's something to keep in mind when we are designing these mirrors, these vanity mirrors, and we want to add light. What type of lights are we using on it, you know? Here's you know, another example on how, you know, it shows the dark spots at the end of the fluorescent tubes and LED tubes, but you don't see that, right? We see those dark spots right here, but we don't see that on, you know, on the LED when it comes to, you know, bending around the corners, and it provides definitely a more even output. Jeff, is this something that some our clients ask often, or is this something that most people don't know the different technologies that are used specifically on?
No, I think now it's kind of expected we're using LED, and all those other problems have sort of gone away. I mean, even the heat generation of the old products, you know, those problems are gone as well, because you get the yellowing effect over time just based on heat. All that's gone too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't see that as much anymore, but. So how are we going to solve some of the common lighting problems? And we're going to go through this. I'm sure like a lot of you know, based on what we use already with you and your knowledge, but, you know, to fix insufficient light, first make sure that the bulbs aren't burned out and the LEDs are the full light brightness. And as we know, LEDs last longer than bulbs, so you don't need to replace them as frequently. And also keep the light fixtures clean. That's super important, so they can shine through and give us the, you know, the max output. Adding more light throughout the space to increase brightness. You mentioned that, Jeff, that it was not only about the task lighting, but also the ambient light in general. And then we can play with the dimming as to what's important at that specific moment. We use light color walls and ceilings to reflect light to increase brightness, and use additional lighting task spaces to eliminate shadows and to provide proper local lighting. the solution to glare, I mean, I would say, the use of several small light fixtures rather than one large fixture typically helps. Using diffusers or fixtures that can direct light in the intended areas, cover like any bare bulbs to control the light. And this can also be accomplished with an edge mirror or a lampshade or a diffuser, right? Increasing the brightness in the surrounding areas, or we can use brightness controls to adjust the different sources, so we can get rid of that glare. And definitely position the light fixtures to reduce any light. This right here, maybe not completely directing to the vanity or to the mirrors, but maybe in a different direction so we don't get that glare. In proper contrast, we actually see this often. And the work area should always be brighter than the surrounding areas. That's something that we can help with the dimming solution, as we mentioned earlier. But we need to illuminate that area, the work area, more often. And there should be more light at the task area than the surrounding area, like we mentioned before. And with the use of high CRI light that replicates sunlight to illuminate objects to the true colors, to the true natural color, actually. For distribution, we can supplement or different light fixtures with the ones with direct light upwards or towards the wall. We can use light color walls in ceilings to reflect the light and keep fixtures in the walls clean, like we mentioned before, so we can have actually a consistent and even distribution of light throughout that environment. I mean, in this slide, we see that, it's kind of like just focus here, but it's at least, the light is facing down, so it probably creates a better environment, but, we got to make sure that the distribution is more even. Now we're going to talk really quick about the ways to design a space with proper lighting, so we can reduce negative, effects like health effects, or even improve lighting functionality for sure. So we talked about the different lighting and how we can enhance it, but it's also important to identify the different purpose of the room. So this is one of the things that we ask our clients. Okay, so what's going to be the purpose of this specific room? And here in general, we're talking about the bathroom space and how we're going to design that. So we see here on the first light is a task bathroom vanity light. And it's typically used to illuminate the area for a specific task, such as grooming or cleaning. And it has to have a higher level of brightness, and it provides obviously more focus. The second one is the ambient light, and that provides a uniform lighting throughout the space, and it definitely establishes the mood in that space. Accent lighting is created by using a focus light source with directional control, and it can be aimed at a specific item or create a focal point. So if you have something that maybe you have beautiful fixtures that you want to highlight, so that would be your accent lighting in the bathroom. And of course, we have decorative lightings that serves a dual purpose. Not only contributes to the task and ambient light, but it also enhances the look of the space and the design of the element. And we do offer many different designs when it comes to the mirrors as well, the lighted mirrors. So, here we have the task layer that we talked throughout the slides. Office, definitely, we have them in kitchens and office space and bathrooms, where the light is more focused and localized, and it provides a higher level of illumination. And then task lightings are most effective when used as a supplement. So we don't want to use the task lighting as our main lighting. We want to make sure that we have, ambient light to just enhance that area. And some of the recommended light levels for task areas are, I would say, 50 to 200 foot candles. And, when lighting a task area, let's make sure that, we have to make sure that there's difference in brightness or contrast between the task area and definitely the surrounding space. And effective task lighting should eliminate any shadows on the specific illuminated area. So that's the whole idea of it. Like we have that surrounding, but the task lighting should focus on eliminating those shadows. The ambient light in general is like an overall lighting that acts like the main source of illumination in a space. And this uniform base level of lighting provides or enables us to move out as easily and safely. And it definitely defines the space. It makes the room look larger. It makes the space feel more comfortable and cozy at times. And typically the recommended light levels for ambient layers anywhere between 30 to 50 foot lambers. And then there's different type of lightings, right? We have perimeter lighting or wall washing. And those, for instance, they help us to define a space. It provides vertical lighting and makes the space feel larger. And obviously where we position it will definitely enhance those specific spaces. Then we have accent lighting, which creates a dramatic emphasis to the space. It's more focus on point. It adds depth and contrast, as we see in some of the spaces here. It helps us display artwork that we have. And the light is directed on typically it's directed to the specific source or what we want to highlight. And the end result might sometimes be unwanted shadows obstructing the details of highlighted items, as well as some glare. But this is something that we have to work around and see, look at what kind of fixture we want to use. But typically accent lighting would direct that light and just highlight that specific item. The key here is to make the illumination more precise with higher intensity. Trucks, fixtures, recessed housings with adjustable trims and conceal adjustable illumination with point source lamps provide directional control and are especially effective for accent lighting. So which is what we were talking here on this galleries, for instance. And the next one is our decorative layer. And like we mentioned before, that it serves a dual purpose. Not only contributes to the light layers in a hospitality environment, but it also enhances the look of the design space. And this, decorative lighting includes pendant sconces, chandeliers, table and floor lamps, etc. I'm sure most of us know, again, a rule of thumb, that pendants should be mounted anywhere between 8 to 12 feet from the finished floor. So we can still have some visibility, but they're not as low as possible. And any pendants over counters, we see them anywhere between 36 to 48 inches. And the wall sconces, we used to say 5.5 feet, but I think it all depends. Again, everything should be customized to what the end user is. So, but those are just rule of thumbs as to where the position of this decorative lighting fixtures should be placed. So, and here we're gonna just see the different bathroom applications. Many tasks are definitely performed in the bathroom, and it's important to have ample light for each task area. So when we design this, it's just important to keep in mind the priority and that in every bathroom should be given to grooming and the mirror, right? Lighting at the mirror serves for cleaning, makeup, shaving, dressing, and it should be plentiful and evenly distributed over the face, hair, neck. So we should not have any shadows under our chin or nose. And then it definitely should be free of glare. And placing lighting near the face height for the most flattering illumination, and obviously flawless and no shadows at all. The ideal brightness measure and put candles at the location of the viewer's face varies by age. I don't know why they keep on, giving us numbers by age here, but anybody, if we're designing anything for anybody under 25 years old, we're talking about 15-foot lambers. 25 to 65 years old, 30-foot lambers, and it doubles for 65 and over. And this is because, again, what we talked earlier, that our perceived brightness, it changes as we get older. So those are some of the numbers. You know, and obviously it has to, I mean, typically we suggest the color temperature to be at 3000 Kelvin, above 85 when it comes to the CRI. And, you know, we suggest with CRI that the optimum solution is to pair a pair of long slim lighting fixtures, 24 to 36 inches in length at the side of the mirrors, and 24 inches apart, two of those 24 to 36 inches. And if you're gonna do lighting above the mirror, it should be at least 24 inches long, so it can illuminate both sides of our face. And definitely, we suggest 100% LED lights due to their longevity and, you know, the efficiency and all the flexibilities when it comes to design. Here goes back to our example earlier of the location of the lamps that I was mentioning earlier here, that we have the two strips and definitely 24 inches apart. So what's just your best lighting in the sink, right? We wonder at times, like, what's the right, and we see on this slide here that it's a mixture of the two. I mean, yes, we do have really good light if we have something coming from the top, but I mentioned, you know, like it's true, it happens often, like by this light here, you're creating a lot of shadows in this area. So you definitely want to have a combination of the two. You want to have something in the back, but also something in the task area. So, you know, it's best to definitely complement the fixtures in the center of the ceiling, and definitely, you know, the task lightings that are shining on your face.
Hey, Vanessa, we're about 10 minutes over now. How many more slides do you have?
We have about 2 more. So we're almost done.
All right. All right, good.
We talked about ambient light here, and I'm just gonna go through this, and these are just some slides showing the accent light and the different decorative lighting to, you know, for elegance. And that was pretty much it. So, you know, I guess just putting it all together, we know that task lighting is necessary. Ambient light provides general lighting. Accent lighting should be used to make bathrooms more welcoming and to highlight any decorations. And decorative lighting can be, you know, can definitely add elegance to the room. So, you know, we have different offerings that can be added to the mirrors. We can add any dimming, we can add a clock. And then there's many other different options when it comes to designs and sizes. And that's it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that presentation. Looks like they added quite a few new slides on that, because we did give this presentation maybe a better part of 8 months ago, and I've noticed a lot of new content in there, so I appreciate you guys keeping that thing up to date. Did we have any questions that we wanted to take before we wrap up here, Marcio?
I don't see any questions here.
Okay, very good. Well, I wanted to thank everybody for sticking with us, even though we ran a little bit over on this one. Maybe I'll see some of you guys Thursday night at the ASID holiday party or at the museum. And if not, then I guess we'll see you guys next year at our next Boca Tech Talks.